Today's episode is sponsored by Polarr Next. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with KevinDeal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So on today's episode, we're going to take a deep dive into a newly launched beta version of some awesome batch editing software called Polarr Next. Let's dive right in. What is Polarr Next? It's a batch editor that lives on both your Chrome web browser and now as a desktop app. It's targeted toward photographers who need to do large batch edits, mainly wedding photographers. It's built around speed and AI. They claim it can save you up to 80% of your time. We'll of course test that out in today's episode. If you're used to using a raw editor like Lightroom, this program will feel very familiar because they laid out the tools exactly like Lightroom. Additionally, you can import Lightroom presets straight into Polarr Next. So how does Polarr Next work? Well, let's edit a real wedding and find out. So go to next.polarr.com or launch the app on your desktop. You'll need to create an account. Of course, I already have an account, so it's going to prompt me to log into the app. So I went in and put my username and password in, and now it's launching the app. The first time using it, it may ask you for permission to access your photos. Go ahead and grant that. To create a new project, you click in the upper right, and then you select a folder. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select the Eubanks wedding. Now, you can create a new style, you can use a style from previous projects, or you can use a Polarr pre-trained AI style. I'm going to create my own style. Now, it's going to go ahead and load the project. Now it's selecting 12 different shots that were shot during very different parts of the wedding. It wants to learn how you want to edit these 12 shots and then apply it to the rest of the wedding. Now, before we do dive into that first edit, I do want to comment that yes, the tools on the right and the left are laid out like Lightroom. However, there are a few tools you want to learn that are specific to the program. It'll be a great benefit for you to learn their locations and their functions. So when you look up at the top at these three icons right here, you have gallery view, editing view, and before and after view. You also have undo, redo, maximize window, and your fit. Down below, you have your settings, you have your keyboard shortcuts, you have your sorting, you have your folder, you have your file formats, maybe you're shooting RAW or JPEG, and then you also have your camera data. In this wedding, you see I shot both on the R5 and the R8. Your center icons have to do with your reference edits, and then the icons on the right all have to do with your sorting, your star ratings, your colors, etc. Now let's adjust our reference edits. So as we look at the first one, the highlights are pulled down, the shadows are I would make it a little bit more airy. Maybe I decide that I want this to also be a little bit more vibrant. So maybe I pull the vibrance up. Maybe I pull the blacks up a little bit. Maybe I want to see a little bit more texture in those fabrics, okay? When I like the way this looks, I can go ahead and mark it as a reference edit. So now when I go to the next one, that's pretty close. I might want to make it a little bit more vibrant. If I'm a color person, I'm into color. And of course, if you like it, you can mark it as a reference. Maybe in this one, slightly pull up the shadows a bit more. When you've made a reference edit, you'll actually see a little pink diamond next to it, and all the references that you have yet to edit will have a blue thumbs up next to it. Now, once you complete your 12th reference edit, you can click the Finish AI Style Setup. What you're now seeing is that it is processing my 600 files. I can see things like the horizon leveling out, so it's clearly learning from my instructions. And one cool thing about Polarr Next that separates it from other programs is that while it's processing your batch, you can still do edits and make reference files. But let's see how well it did. As I scroll through, I'm looking for shots where I think the AI didn't quite get it right. So as I'm scrolling down, I see pretty bright and vibrancy across the board. However, I see right here, these subjects on the left, they're a little too dark. So I'm gonna click on this shot. And yeah, I think that the subjects are a little too dark. So I'm gonna boost the shadows and the exposure a little bit so they'll stand out a little bit more because they're definitely more important to me than the sky. Much better. Now that I've made those adjustments, I'm gonna mark this as a reference edit and look below. You can see that all the shots that I took at about the same time with about the same settings are now being adjusted by the AI. So I'm double checking the work that the AI went ahead and readjusted. And as I look at it, yes, the shadows have been lifted, the exposure is a little lifted, and it looks good. Now let's scroll on and look for something else that stands out. So as we scroll on, everything looks pretty good up to this point. However, I think in this edit, it was a little too HDR, a little too heavily processed looking. So I'm actually gonna back the shadow off a little bit. And as I do that, I actually like the way that looks. Now I'm gonna mark it as a reference edit and look down below. All the similar shots where they're kissing, where I have the camera down low like that, they all adjusted together. That shadow dropped a little bit more, and now it looks a little less fake to me and a little bit more realistic. Now let's move on to the reception. At the reception, you can see that the white balance is pretty tricky here. It's a little too tungstenish for my taste, so I'm gonna make it a little cooler. I think that looks more pleasing to my eyes. And look, you see down below, it's processing over 100 files now because we are at the reception. And of course, the white balance has changed dramatically. Here's one where it missed and I went in and I adjusted it. I'm just making it a little cooler. I think that looks a little bit more pleasing to my eye. I'd rather look at that in a wedding album than that eyesore of tungsten. So when you finish up your wedding and you like the way everything looks, you can go to this spot right here. This is your style. It's called KevinDeal at Outlook.com style. I'm going to rename that to Kevin Wedding. And I'm going to hit update. Now that's called Kevin Wedding. About this AI style, it's looked at 18 reference edits I've given it. And as you make more references, this number will grow and the AI will get better at adjusting to your style. Now, if you don't like it and you want to start over, you can use a different style. And when you do that, it prompts you to use a style from a previous project, create a new style, or you can use the Polarr pre-trained AI styles. Here are some of the different styles. You can check those out. Now, in this case, I'm not actually going to do that, but I wanted to show you just in case you had second thoughts about your edits. Instead, we're going to close this out and we're going to do an export. When you're done with your project, you can select TIFF or JPEG. You can do your PPI. I do 300. I do the full size edit. You can do 16 or 8-bit sRGB color space, etc. You can even do a naming scheme and name them in a certain way. You can also just select a single image or you can select all the images. So when you're ready, just export them all out and you're good to go. Okay, so now that I have some time under my belt with Polarr Next, I definitely have some thoughts because I've been using raw editors for years. First and foremost, I'm very impressed with how fast they're rolling things out. In this newest version, they have the spot heal tool. They have the point color tool, which is very similar to what I use inside Capture One to get really accurate skin tones. They have masks for subjects, backgrounds, and skies, which allow you to fine-tune your photos to your liking. I was also pleasantly surprised to see that the AI was accurately applying adjustments that I made with spot heal, masks, and other tool adjustments to files that were impacted by reference edits. They also have black and white mode, which allows you to create black and white AI styles on Polarr Next by marking black and white photos as reference edits. All very cool and all pretty impressive considering how short this product has been on the market. Now let's talk about speed. It's very fast and very snappy. The tools react very well to when I adjust the parameters. I even noticed that their spot heal tool actually reacted faster than Capture One, which I've had for years. So kudos to Polarr Next for having a very snappy and fast program considering that it's in beta. Another pro is that it's an easy and a familiar interface. If you're used to using Lightroom, you'll know how to use this program because the tools are pretty much laid out in the exact same spots. Now, there are a few specific tools to the program that you need to learn, but they're very easy. They're either at the top toolbar or the bottom toolbar. Now to probably my favorite feature of this program, which is that the AI does what they say it does, and that is it learns fast. When I am taking shots during a wedding, it's almost like it knows which part of the wedding I'm at. It's like, oh yeah, you're doing the preparation shots as the bride and the groom get ready. Oh, now you're taking pictures of people going to their seats. Now you're taking pictures of the ceremony. Now you're taking pictures in the reception. It seemed to know because of the gigantic shifts in white balance, exposure, maybe if there's a ton of highlights beaming through, it knows that you're shooting kind of into the sun. So it's really good at analyzing like photos and adjusting your edits to those shots. And that of course saves you tons of time. So when they make the claim that it can cut your workflow by up to 80% time-wise, I would say that for those of you who spend a lot of time adjusting colors and exposure and contrast and all that, I would say that that is a bold claim, but a claim that appears to be true. On the subject of speed, the wedding that you saw me edit, I actually edited it back in February. So this is my second go around. But that first time I edited it, it took me about 3 or 4 hours. Using Polarr Next for the very first time, it only took me about 30 to 45 minutes to edit this wedding. So it absolutely cut down on my editing time. Another thing that I like is that both the desktop app and the web browser app integrate seamlessly into one another. When I make an adjustment on one, over the cloud, it adjusts it on the other. It's very much like if you've ever used the program Canva. There's the Canva desktop version, and then there's the Canva in your browser. So it's a very familiar interface that I'm used to using, and I haven't noticed a lot of bugs between both versions of the program. They seem to work seamlessly. It's non-destructive, so you are using raw files, and what you are seeing on the screen is its ability to adjust those raw files, but in the end, it creates brand new files. So it's non-destructive and it doesn't mess with your original files. Another pro of this program is that you only pay for exports. So if you don't do a ton of edits every month, there are pricing structures that may be more compatible with how your budget works. To be crystal clear, you have unlimited edits and you only pay for exports, whether you purchase an unlimited export plan or you pay as you go. And so now let's talk about the things that I think that they could improve upon. So at present time, it's only compatible with Lightroom presets. While that's a good business decision on the part of Polarr Next, because the majority of you out there who are watching this probably do use Lightroom, I personally am a Capture One user, so my Capture One styles at present time are useless in this program. Another thing I'd like to see them roll out in future versions of this program are skin retouching tools that implement AI. At current time, they do have the Spot Heal tool, and they do have a really cool color tool like the Point Color tool, which is an awesome tool for blending skin tones correctly. But I'd like to see maybe like a micro dodge and burn, blemish detection, or something to that effect. Another thing I'd like to see them implement is a round trip workflow into Photoshop and back. All other RAW editors like Capture One and Lightroom have this ability, and there's just some edits that this program simply can't do. I would love the ability to, inside the program, right-click a file, send it to Photoshop, edit to Photoshop, have it do its edits, have it send it back into Polarr Next. And lastly, probably the most critical thing I can say about this program is that at present time, you need internet to import and export photos. Now, if you have the project already imported into Polarr Next and say you lose internet connection, you can still edit the files, but in order to export them, you have to be online. So who should purchase this program? Let's have a quick discussion about cost. I'll just tell you right off the bat that if you are a full-time wedding photographer or a full-time event photographer and you are exporting about 1,000 plus photos every week, then you should take a hard look at this program, because if you are paying for someone to edit your photos or you're spending a ton of time editing photos yourself, this could be a really good program for your business. It is $1,560 per year if you pay in a lump sum. That is for the unlimited export plan. That $1,560 comes out to about $130 a month. So if you were to book 2 weddings a month and you just upcharge $60, that could take care of your editing. Now, for some of you out there, you may require more flexibility. Maybe your business is seasonal. Maybe you just started your business and your income is volatile. In that case, the month-to-month may make more sense to you. It's a little bit more upfront cost, but it gives you the flexibility to cancel at any time. Now, for those of you who are freaked out about the pricing I just threw out, they also have a pay-as-you-go where it's only 5 cents an export. And if you think about that, the wedding that I edited today had 600 photos. So if I used all my exports on that wedding, it would only cost me $30 to edit that wedding. Now, if you are a full-time wedding photographer, I hope you're charging a price that has a comma in it for your weddings, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for a wedding. And when you think about that, how much is $30 really, especially if it saves you a ton of time? So Where I stand on this program right now is that it is an incredibly powerful tool for people who need to batch edit. The AI in this program is truly AI and not a bunch of hype. Every single time you process a batch of edits, your editing window gets shorter and shorter because it's learning what you like to do. Couple that with the fact that Polarr Next is rolling out features at a breakneck pace, and it's actually catching up to programs like Lightroom and Capture One in terms of the tools that it offers, and then the flexible pricing that they offer depending on the type of photographer that you are and where you are in your photography journey may make some of you take a step back and consider if this could be a serious tool for your tool belt for your photography business. As to whether or not this program is right for you, well, that is entirely up to you and how your workflow is and what your budget is. But the good news is if you check out the link in the description of this video, Polarr Next was kind enough to give you 2,500 free exports upon using my code in the description of this video. If you use the pay-as-you-go option, that's $125 worth of exports. I think 2,500 free exports is a good starting point to see if you like the program, if you think it's going to benefit you. That's about 2 weddings worth of exports. So I highly encourage you to check that out for free, export those files, and see if they work for you. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. I hope you like what you heard. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. If you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.